Welcome to the Dr. Dare Show. My name is Dr. Frederick Dare, and today we're talking about the stigma of mental health illness and treatment in the black community. But before I get started, I want you to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it, and hit the bell at the bottom of the screen. So we wanted to get into talking about the stigma in the African American community as it relates to mental health illness and it relates to mental health treatment. A lot of people in the African American or black community don't like to go to the what they call the shrink. They used to call the shrink the head doctor, the crazy person's doctor, because they don't want that stigma placed on their family. And so today we want to kind of talk about those stigmas, and we want to kill that thought process in our community, right? Because if you're sick, you're physically sick, you would go to the doctor. So if you're mentally sick, we want you to go to the doctor as well. And so I'm going to talk about three things. First is the stigma itself, and then the stigma due to lack of knowledge, and then the stigma due to religion. And so first of all, I'm going to define what stigma is. Stigma is the disgrace or shame associated with a situation, and in this case it's mental health. And for some reason in the black community we have this thing where mental health shouldn't happen, and you should be embarrassed if that's if you have mental illness. And that's just not the case, because according to the Health and Human Services Offices of Minority Health, African American individuals experience high rates of severe mental health illness due to their needs being unmet, which means due to like racism and just not being able to obtain things because of the color of your skin. So we actually need mental health treatment because we're the ones that suffer a lot from it. And there's a thing called minority stress that I studied in school, is where minorities, they have a specific type of stress due to racism and other things that cause it. It's a separate stress. So we do need to kind of squash that theory that mental health treatment is for rich people, or mental health treatment is for other people, but just not our families and not our communities. And so that's why I'm here. So first thing, and we talked about the stigma, and we wanted to, the stigma is just that. Like I said, it's just, you think that there's something wrong with you because you have this illness. The second one is the stigma due to the lack of knowledge. And I believe that is a lot of the situation, because I think our community, we don't know what mental health looks like. Sometimes we see, things that stand out, like people having hallucinations and hearing voices and stuff like that. You kind of associate that with mental illness, but that's not all mental illness is. It's a whole gamut of different types of mental disorders. And so first we want to define the term mental illness. Now, I looked in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health, the DSM, and basically it kind of said that the mental health topic, or the mental health term, is so broad because it's hard to define, because it depends on the scenario or the experience that's happening. So I want to define it for you so that the community, our community, can have an idea of what it is. So my thing, when I'm saying someone has a mental illness, to me it's something has taken place mentally that is preventing you from functioning and carrying out your day-to-day activities. For example, for a child, if they're going to school and all they're doing is fighting with other students, they bully the teacher, they bully the principal, they've been known to, and all of that behavior is now disrupting their academics, and now they're being put out of school. Or the child has been known to kill an animal and think nothing of it. And again, these scenarios could go on and on. As far as adults, you're so sad, your mood is so sad that you don't get out of bed and go to work, or you have so much anxiety that you can't you can't ride an elevator up to the 11th floor, which is where your office is, to go to work, then these are all types of mental illnesses. But the list can go on and on, which is why it's kind of hard to define that term. And that's why I think it's hard for part of the reason there is a stigma there, because you don't know what it is. When you hear mental health illness in the community, you're like, oh my God, it's going back to that crazy doctor. And I remember growing up in my neighborhood, and I remember seeing this individual walking around. I was a child and walking around this tree constantly, and I was like, oh, that's strange. Something doesn't seem right. I mean, me being as a kid, I observed that. But the rumor that was in the neighborhood was that this individual went to a party, and someone put something in her drink, and she hasn't been the same since. And so it was like, I think that probably was a cover-up for this person having a mental illness. I don't know. But that's the type of things that go on in the black community. We'll say, oh, she's been strange all her life, or he's been like that all his life, but what we don't want to do is wait too late for that person harms themselves or harms you, when you could have just simply went and got mental health treatment. And I look at mental health treatment as the same as I do if I go to a physical doctor. If I'm having a physical ailment, a broken leg, a stomach ache, a strep throat, or something like that, I go see a doctor. Same thing for mental health. Don't distinguish that. It's for my community. Don't distinguish that. Don't let the stigma of being labeled going to a crazy doctor or a shrink or a head doctor or anything like that keep you from getting help for you or your loved ones. And the next category is the stigma due to religion. And what I mean is, all we're taught to do is, if there's somebody has a mental health issue, is to pray about it. Pray. Nothing wrong with prayer. There's nothing wrong with prayer, and I'm not saying that. I believe in prayer. I believe in God. I believe you should seek help. But there's also a scripture in James chapter 2, verses 14 through 26 that say faith without works is dead. So to me, yeah, you pray that your family member is going to be okay and that, you can help them, but also seek help for them from a professional, because I believe God put professionals on earth to help others. And so I feel like that's a step you need to take, because if you have faith in God and you have faith that God is going to heal that person, but I think God is like, okay, what are you doing to help get closer to this healing process? And that's just my opinion, but I think that's what happens. And what I don't want is us saying what goes on in this house stays in this house. Hear that again. What goes on in this house stays in this house. If you have someone mentally sick in your house, I pray to God that you make it out all right, but you need to get help for that person in this house. We have to leave that stigma out and leave that mindset of what goes on in this house stays in this house. You got to leave that out, because that is going to get you in trouble, and we really need to get involved with mental health. It is very important. Just like your physical health, you go to the doctor for diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., etc. You should be going for mental health issues, because you got to get it out. What I always tell clients, you got to get it out. If no one knows what's going on, they can't help you. And I think that's where that stigma is too. You don't want to let people in your house. You want to keep all your secret stuff in the family so that you're not stigmatized for going to a doctor. So before I leave, I wanted to give you a few tips. If you've noticed someone in your family or friends that the mental state has changed and their behavior has changed, start taking notes, start writing down the symptoms that you see. If you want to, before you consult a professional, you want to go online and kind of put those symptoms in and see what comes up. But I recommend, if you're doing that, I recommend you do seek a professional and just kind of tell them what you're experiencing, and they can help you. They have the expertise to help you. And that's my second tip, is please go see a professional. Simple as that. And we got to get rid of this stigma because it's going to hurt our community. And it can endanger you too. I mean, I've seen where mental health patients, well, I saw that they were mentally sick. They got shot by the cops because I don't think the cops are trained to handle or understand what is going on as well. And so you take your family and take charge of their health in your hands. You do it. And don't leave it in anybody else's hand. And the last thing is, your sessions with your therapist or your psychologist or your professional are confidential. They're professionals are held by a standard of confidentiality, and they can lose their license and some other things if they, do that. Because I've heard in it was going over Facebook where it was kind of like I think Mary J. Blige was saying she had something going on mentally, but was afraid to go to a therapist because she didn't want her business put out there. Okay, there's a remedy to that. If that does happen, and it probably won't if she gets a good therapist, then you can take legal action. But they'll lose a lot to give that up. But they are here to help you. And I wanted to go back to the religion because I was remembering a story about, I think it was the Amish people. It was a documentary where this one guy was so sick. And I want to leave you with this story. He was hallucinating. He was seeing things, hearing things, just, but the church community, they just kind of ignored him. But they prayed for him a lot, but they sent him to one of their doctors who wasn't trained at all, kind of like just prescribed things. So he was prescribing this certain person molasses, and that was the end-all treatment for everything, was give him molasses. Of course, that wasn't working, so they were praying, of course, and giving him molasses, and finally he ended up killing his wife because the mental issues took over. And so we don't want that to be our family. We don't want that to be our loved ones, our friends, or even our enemies. So we got to erase this stigma as a community and come together and tell somebody if you see something strange in an individual, help. Talk about it. Get it out. Please leave any comments or questions you have in the comment section or email me. And again, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like this video, and hit the little bell down on the bottom. This has been Dr. Dare. Hope you have a great evening. Thank you.